Well, they finally did it. They finally pulled the plug. That's right, everyone. After over 2 years of speculating, getting supposed leaks, and not really knowing what the hell was going on, the modern run of Doctor Who has reached its equivalent of the '89 cancellation. Not only is the BBC now shopping the series out to competitive tender, but the 2026 Christmas special has been cancelled, which means we're more than likely not getting an answer to why the Doctor turned into Billie Piper, and to quote my good friend Ncuti Gatwa,
I don't understand it either.
Anyway, in this video, I'm going to be looking at the recent press release from the BBC, as well as talking about what comes next, if anything. So, a few weeks back, Russell teased that there would be an upcoming press release of some kind that would confirm what was coming next for Doctor Who. Some were speculating it could be about the Christmas episode, or that they could be announcing the next Doctor. But, neither of those turned out to be true. The press release read, and I quote, "As part of securing the next phase of the show for future generations, and in line with the BBC's charter and agreement requirements, the BBC will put Doctor Who out to competitive tender this year. Doctor Who remains an important part of the BBC, and this tender underpins the BBC's continued commitment to Doctor Who, ensuring audiences will enjoy the show for years to come. After careful consideration, the BBC, Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf have collectively decided not to go ahead with the previously announced Doctor Who Christmas episode. This decision was not taken lightly, and we know it will be disappointing for fans, but in order to set the show up for future series, it was decided that rather than bridge the gap with a one-off special, we are choosing to push forward to invest in the long-term future of the show, which ensures that when the TARDIS lands once more, it does so in all its glory. The previously announced new Doctor Who animation series for CBeebies is currently in production. Details of the tender will be announced in due course. The BBC retains all IP in Doctor Who. BBC Studios will continue to lead the global distribution of Doctor Who, as well as licensing, consumer products, digital and immersive experiences on behalf of the BBC. So, I am certainly mixed on this news. On one hand, I'm actually happy that the BBC is shipping Who out to competitive tender, which likely means a new streaming partner potentially, and a whole new creative team, but on the other hand, I am extremely unhappy with the fact they decided to cancel the Christmas episode. We were finally going to get an answer as to what happened to the Doctor after the Season 2 finale. Was Billy the next Doctor? Would By Generation finally get a definitive answer? Were the Daleks coming back? And would David Tennant somehow be coaxed back for another appearance? But instead, the BBC, I think, have finally reached the equivalent of the classic series conclusion and the start of the Wilderness Years, which is a situation I think, let's be honest, none of us really wanted. We got 7 Doctors during the modern run of the show: Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, Capaldi, Whittaker, Her and Martin, and Tennant again technically, which brings it over 7 to begin with, and then there was an attempt to revive the show with a new audience and a new era, bridging the old and the new together, only for that to not go so well, and we're effectively back to where Who was in 1989, no work being done on the show, and the beginning of what I like to call the Wilderness Years 2, Vortex Boogaloo. Another noteworthy part of this press release is the BBC are now putting Doctor Who out to what they're calling competitive tender, which I assume means they are trying to shop around for a potential streaming partner and a new production crew. And I think this announcement also confirms that Bad Wolf and Russell T Davies are in fact departing from the show, likely for good. At this moment in time, I can't really see Russell coming back in a similar way to how Stephen Moffat did in the recent era, just writing 1 or 2 new episodes before disappearing into the ether altogether. But who will the new streaming partner be? At this moment, I am actually hoping AMC Studios will take on that role. They fairly recently got access to the back catalogue of Doctor Who's modern run, bar the Disney episodes for obvious reasons, but I think seeing what AMC did with The Walking Dead and translating that onto something like Doctor Who would be interesting. I'm just hoping that they can find some new blood for the show. I mean, MGM recently tapped Amy Pascal and David Heyman to helm the new era of the Bond franchise, so you never know. Something good could come of this. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was very unhappy with the cancellation of the Christmas episode, because it basically removes any good chance of finding out what happened to the Doctor after the Reality War, mainly the fact that Billie Piper is now the Doctor, technically. Not only that, but there's also a good number of plot points still dangling from Russell's new era, which I imagine were going to be explored with either a 3rd season or this festive special, which we're of course not getting. However, what does this mean for the Reality War cliffhanger? Well, at this point, I see 3 likely options moving forward. Number 1, a few years down the road, Billie will return as part of a possible multi-Doctor story to tie off this plot point. Number 2, Billie's Doctor and the adventure that leads to her regeneration will be explored in some kind of expanded media via comics. And finally, Billie will return a couple years down the road, but in the form of a Big Finish box set alongside David Tennant to potentially tie off the By Generation thread, seeing as this worked for the 6th Doctor's last adventure. I don't know which one will happen, let alone if any of them actually will, but only time will tell, of course. Now, with Doctor Who on what is seemingly a hiatus, we're now once again back in what was called the Wilderness Years back in the 1990s, after the show was cancelled but before the revival, and yes, the TV movie actually counts to that, apparently. However, whilst the news of Who's hiatus is certainly disappointing, I think this presents us with an opportunity of sorts. Going back to my point about possibly exploring what happens after the reality war in the expanded media, I think this could be the time to do it. This happened in the 90s as well, with attempts to explain the further adventures of the Doctor and Ace in what became known as the Virgin New Adventures range. Now, much like how we got adventures with the 14th Doctor in the expanded media just prior, we could definitely do the same with Billy's Doctor, because if we're not going to explore what happened on screen, then a new round of expanded media perhaps following these adventures could be the right way to go about it. We're not likely to get it in Big Finish at this point, I think, but maybe books and possibly comics could be the way we're going to get Billy's Doctor. Now, since this news came out, a lot of people, namely the tabloid newspapers, have been falsely reporting that Doctor Who has been cancelled, when that isn't even remotely the case to begin with. All that's happening is that the BBC are still remaining committed to the show and will still be putting effort into it. The animated TV show I think will be proof of that, but all that's happening currently is the main series is taking a break. And I get it, this isn't the news we wanted. We were all hoping for either confirmation on the Xmas special or even an announcement of the next Doctor, or maybe even a new showrunner. But I think Who going on a break so that the BBC can basically get their shit together and figure out how to move forward is a good thing. It means that when Doctor Who eventually returns, we'll be happy about it and the wait will have been worth it. But in the meantime, all we can really do now is go back and watch the show, watch our favourite episodes, and maybe even create our own fan projects in the meantime. I know it's something I'm planning to do during this difficult period for the fandom right now. But in conclusion, this is a difficult time for Doctor Who right now. Things may look pretty bleak for the Whovian masses at the moment, but as a wise man once said, "The night is darkest just before the dawn, and the dawn is coming."